Welcome back, it's the Executioner, and today we're taking a look at a Riley J. Dennis video. Let's not keep her waiting, enjoy.
Hey everybody, I'm Riley, and I get this question a lot. Wait, so you're a girl? You're a trans woman? But you're also non-binary? How is that possible? I thought non-binary meant neither woman nor man.
That's a good point, Riley's split personality. How can you be a woman while also being non-binary? Non-binary means you reject the concept of gender and sex, but you also claim to be a woman, which is in the biological gender. Or, actually, a biological sex, because there's only two genders, Riley. Like, seriously, how can you claim to be none while being one? That makes no sense.
How can you be both? That's the polite version. Usually it's not so polite. But the explanation for this is actually really simple.
Okay, Riley, I'm going to hear you out. If it's gonna be real simple, try not to turn this into an Einstein math equation. Your brain might explode from you overusing it.
It just involves adding one word to your definition of non-binary. The common misconception is that a non-binary person is neither a man nor a woman.
What the fuck is going on here, Riley? If you Google the exact words you have on screen right now, according to the Tumblr crowd, the SJW crowd, the fucking feminist crowds, that definition will be correct. But it goes to show, SJWs will change a label, a definition, or whatever to suit their poor me narrative.
But actually, a non-binary person is someone who is neither strictly a man nor a woman. It's not that non-binary people can't be men or women, it's just that they're not just men or just women. They're not binary men or binary women. Right, because they're aliens. That's not a very nice thing to say. No, like the good kind of aliens, like Kryptonians, like Superman or Supergirl. Not like War of the Worlds kind of aliens. They just have superpowers. No.
Really? Aliens? Like, I know that's a joke, Riley, but are you some type of conspiracy theorist? Are you hiding from the government or whatever?
Oh, no, you can't tell them. No, we totally don't have superpowers. That's, not true. Not true at all. But
No shit, you don't have superpowers. And by the way, if you did, I think you would be smart enough to realize that non-binary genders are not a thing.
Genders do come in a pretty wide range, because non-binary is just an umbrella term for a whole range of gender identities. It can include people who are agender, gender fluid, gender flux, gender queer, androgen, nutwa, demigirl, demiboy, and so on. And because
Riley, what are you talking about? All of these genders are just going to end up in failure because you're going to need a dictionary one day just to look these up. Why not just tattoo it on your forehead? Why not? Then at least people can know what your freaking gender is. Like, seriously, this makes no sense. You're coming up with so many terms that eventually nobody wants to fucking remember them. So you're just going to identify as gender fluid because there's so many terms that you just can't keep track of them all.
Because gender is such a personal thing, everyone experiences it differently. So someone might feel that they're more of a man on one day, but then more agender on another day. And they could be both a man and non-binary. Because gender is a spectrum, and you don't have to identify on that spectrum, or even stay in the same place on that spectrum all the time. For me,
gender's not a spectrum. I can't believe I have to say this, but just pick up a biology textbook if you don't believe me, or just pick up a psychology textbook, because honestly, gender is not a spectrum, and there are only two of it. You cannot move in between those genders. That's why gender fluid is not a real thing.
I feel like I'm far enough to the girl side of the spectrum to consider myself a girl, but I also feel kind of gender neutral. It's like my gender just floats around that general side of the spectrum. So there are a lot of ways I could describe that. I could say trans feminine, or femme non-binary, or just non-binary woman.
Those labels you have on screen, Riley, they're just fucking labels. Trans feminine, trans whatever, they're just all labels. And honestly, when you say trans feminine, feminine is just a characteristic of the gender female. Masculine can be a trait of the male, but it does not create another gender.
I feel like a binary trans woman, but I also don't feel like the word non-binary fully describes my experience. I'm like right in the middle, and it turns out there's not one perfect word to describe someone in that part of the spectrum. So the next question that generally comes up is my pronouns. How can I
Oh god, the pronouns. Get inside, the artillery barrage of pronouns are about to begin.
Be non-binary if I use she, her pronouns? Well, I'd love it if there was a specific pronoun for my part of the spectrum. If there was a pronoun that was in between she, her, and they, them, I would use it, but that just doesn't exist. I do like they, them pronouns.
Okay, if you don't like it, why don't you invent your own? I mean, I'm not for a new pronoun out there, but stop bitching and complaining and make one up.
No problem with people referring to me that way. I just generally tell people that my pronouns are she, her for the sake of simplicity. It involves less explaining, less arguing, less trying to convince them that those are legitimate pronouns. And also, I just like the feminine feeling of being called she or her. But that doesn't mean that I'm any less non-binary. She,
Yes, it kinda does make you less non-binary, because usually non-binaries want to be called they and them and zer and whatever. You saying she and her kind of invalidates the fact that you want to be non-binary.
her pronouns aren't only for binary women. And in a society where there's a ton of pressure to use he or she pronouns, I don't think you can fault non-binary people for just wanting to use what's easier sometimes. On the flip side of all of this, some people feel that they are just a man or just a woman, and those people would be binary men or binary women.
No, they're men or women, not binary men or women. They're just men and women. If somebody's trans and they want to become a woman or a man, then that's cool. Now they're a woman or a man. Not biologically, but kind of in that social aspect. But no, you cannot just make up new terms for the other side. You can make up new terms for yourself. I don't give a shit. But once you start making up terms for us, people who might be biologically male or female, or just people who decided to switch or whatever, then that's kind of fucked up.
Could be transgender, like someone who was assigned female at birth but now identifies as a man, or they could be cisgender, like someone who was assigned male at birth and now identifies as a man. But I don't want to create this whole binary people versus non-binary people divide. In fact, I think binary trans people have a lot more in common with non-binary people than they often realize. That's because being transgender just means you don't identify with the gender you were assigned at birth.
Riley, the problem with your definition is that it only says one thing, that people don't identify with the gender that they're born as, so that makes them trans. But you don't explain that there's an actual mental condition that actually goes along with that, and that social dysphoria is not a freaking thing, and that trans people have to go through a legitimate mental illness called gender dysphoria, which is very real and proven by science.
Some people argue that the trans prefix means transition, and that to be transgender means you have to have transition. But I think that definition is terribly outdated and doesn't account for the fact that some people are never able to or don't want to transition in the way that society has defined that. So by that first step,
Riley, are you fucking serious? You can't just change definitions willy-nilly, but when we try to do it, you get pissed off. The word transgender in its definition has worked out for decades. And guess what? It's a good definition. Why change something that isn't broken?
Definition, non-binary people are also trans. Not all non-binary people identify as trans, and that's fine, but the experiences of binary trans people and non-binary people all have the common thread of not being cisgender. That is, not identifying completely with the gender you were assigned at birth. So
you don't get assigned a gender at birth. All the doctor does is look at your genitals, see if you're a boy or a girl, and that's it. He just tells the parents what he sees. Nothing nefarious or complex.
yes, you can be trans and non-binary. And in fact, when I use the word trans as a broad umbrella term, I do include non-binary people under that. So that's all there is to it. Non-binary people are also sometimes men or women, and non-binary people can also be trans, and they can have superpowers. But that's only like 1 in every 250 of us. So
know what? I've had enough with this video. I've had enough with this stupidity. I'm just done. Anyways, guys, if you liked the video, give it a like. Have an awesome week that's up ahead. And, bye.